Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, author of Visualizing Happiness in Every Area of Your Life and host of this podcast, Incredible Life Creator. And today, my guest is Mr. Morry Zelcovitch. Hey, Morry.
Hey, Kimberly, nice to see you.
Yes, I'm so excited to get into this conversation. In fact, everyone can see the background if they're looking on the YouTube channel and the podcast. You can't, but he has a very interesting background. So we're going to get into this. But just so people know you, I'm going to read your bio. So, from a young age, Morry Zelcovitch faced a myriad of challenges, including hearing multiple voices in his head and grappling with severe depression. His innate curiosity led him to explore the field of brainwave entrainment, particularly when he noticed that rhythmic sounds seemed to alter his perception of time and improve his mental state. Dissatisfied with the limited efficacy of existing products, Morry sought the expertise of a leading authority in brainwave entrainment. This pivotal encounter equipped him with invaluable insights that were previously elusive. Armed with his newfound knowledge, Morry successfully mitigated his own mental struggles. Now, as a distinguished brainwave entrainment engineer, he is committed to enhancing the lives of others, offering a safer and more effective alternative to habit forming medications. His journey from adversity to expertise exemplifies his relentless pursuit of innovation and his unwavering dedication to improving mental well being. So, like I said, I'm so excited to get into this conversation, but I want people to know you. So, tell us your story.
Sure, I'll give you the abridged version. Basically, I spent the first 40 years of my life wanting to be dead.
Mm.
Severe depression, hearing thousands of voices in my head all the time. I used to get up every morning. I would cross my fingers. I'd look out the window and I would hope I would see mushroom clouds. Seeing the clouds would tell me I didn't have to live through another day. And that was something that I really wanted. I tried to kill myself at least 6 times that I'm aware of. Apparently, I was unsuccessful, unless I'm not really here. No, I'm kidding. So I was unsuccessful. The thing is, if I really wanted to die, one time should have been enough. When I realized I couldn't find a way to die, I figured I had to find a way to live. And that's really what started me looking into my problem and seeing what I could do about it. I actually had an affirmation, by the way. So affirmations work. Unfortunately, life is a disease for which there is no cure but death. I
Wow.
probably repeated that a million times. I mean, I'm probably exaggerating, but it felt like a million times.
Mm.
It was multiple times, nonstop, pretty much for the better part of 40 years. So do the math. It's probably pretty close to a million. I first tried the usual suspects that most people I assume would try. I shouldn't speak for others, so I'll speak for myself. I became a drug addict. I smoked probably 30 or 40 joints a day. I did coke, I did acid, I did bennies, which are kind of like a low class acid. Um, I was addicted to alcohol. I was addicted to women. It wasn't uncommon for me to have 3 dates in one day just to try to forget, try to dull the pain, try to, the more stimulation I had in my life, the less I was able to think. The less I could think, the happier I was. So I tried all of that. Obviously, it ended badly. It made things worse. Everything made things worse. So I decided, well, maybe, doctors are supposed to know something, so I'll go see some doctors. So I saw doctors and clinicians and therapists and coaches and psychiatrists and psychologists, and none of them could help. Back in those days, they didn't give pills for everything. So they more or less said, well, you're actually coping really well. There's not much we can do for you. See ya. So they told me to go. Of course, that didn't get me anywhere either. Then I decided to try, the more esoteric routes. I tried things like hypnosis and meditation and prayer and all the different things, EFT, EMDR, breathing techniques, other types of tapping techniques. I tried probably thousands of different things. None of them made any difference. Then I decided maybe the problem is I'm trying to throw things against the wall and hope they stick. Maybe if I educate myself, that would make a difference. So I started looking into things like perception, psychology, quantum physics, pretty much any discipline at all that had anything to do, or I thought at least had anything to do with why I thought the way I thought, why I felt the way I felt. As I'm researching, I'm coming across all these different techniques and technologies, all of which, again, did nothing, at least for me. I'm not bad mouthing them. I'm sure they're excellent techniques. For me, they weren't working. As I'm researching and studying, I'm learning more about the brain. I'm learning more about neurochemistry. My understanding became pretty clear to me that my thoughts were creating what I call negative chemistry. Thoughts create brainwave activity. Brainwave activity, depending on the neuron, the brain cell, where it is in the brain, and how many times it pulses per second in electric impulse, that dictates the kind of chemistry it's producing. Things like neurotransmitters, endorphins, and hormones. So it turned out that chemistry is actually what allows people to feel things and to become aware of things. It's kind of like a code on your phone. You have to tap in certain areas to get certain things to happen. Open certain apps, play different types of music, add a calendar link, anything like that at all. You have to know where to tap. Well, your brain is programmed in a similar way, that the thoughts create brainwave activity, which creates chemistry, which creates your perception, your experience. When I realized that, I thought, ooh, I'm going to read all these self-help books, because if I can change how I think, that then will change the chemistry, will change the brainwave activity, which would then change the chemistry, which would then change my experience. Unfortunately, 40 years of thinking of myself as the reincarnation of Adolf Hitler wasn't going to get changed by changing my thoughts. I tried, I just got more and more depressed. Then one day I realized that, wait a minute, I can't change my thoughts, but I've identified all these different stages. So if I can't change my thoughts, maybe I can change my chemistry. And I went camping, and the only way I could sleep would be to smoke a really big joint before I went to bed. I couldn't sleep any other way. So I'm sitting around the campfire. Everybody else is in bed. I rolled a big fat joint for myself. I smoked it. Now, one of the things about my symptomology was that I actually, time crawled for me, absolutely crawled. I smoked the joint, and 4.5, 5 hours later, which I felt like half an hour, had passed. That was the first time in my life I've ever had that experience.
Mm.
I feel literally like I'm about 1,000 years old now
Mm.
because of how slow time moved for those 40 years. Well, the long and the short of it is, I think that train's already left the station actually. But the long and the short of it is that I was sitting around the campfire, hand in my head. What was different? It wasn't the smoking up, because I've done that a million times. It was the logs crackling and snapping and popping. That's what I figured. That's the only thing that was different. So when I got back from the trip, I started going to what I call the paper internet, otherwise known as a library.
Mhm.
They didn't have the internet back then, so I call it the paper internet. And I started looking at neurology articles and neurobiology articles and neurochemical models and articles and research papers and psychology and perception and anything I could find to understand my brain. And that's when I kind of started putting together the philosophy that if I could change things, maybe it's sound that's going to allow me to change my chemistry by changing my activity.
Mm.
I came across brainwave entrainment. I didn't invent it. I wish I could tell you I did. That would be quite the bragging rights as far as I'm concerned. But when I started doing the entrainment that was available, it wasn't helping me. It didn't make any difference. But that also didn't make any sense to me. Keep in mind, I'm desperate now. It's like 40 years of this.
Mhm.
I don't want to live like this, but I'm beginning to think I have no choice. Then it struck me. This technology has never changed. It's always the same. Everybody who did it is applying the same principles. They've never evolved it. They've never changed it. I used to have a full head of hair. That changed. It's nature for things to change.
Mhm.
That's the connection I made. I realized Maybe it didn't help me, or none of these varieties helped me because it hasn't changed. It hasn't evolved. So I took it upon myself to evolve the science. When I did that, I eventually tried my very first recording, noticed nothing, except 5 minutes later, after it was over, the voices, I had thousands of voices in my head all the time. Those voices were gone. And the only reason why I noticed it was 5 minutes afterwards, they started coming back.
Uh,
6 months ago, I realized, you see, when I finished the session, I got sad. I thought, oh, my only hope, and it didn't work. Because at that time, I didn't notice the voices were gone.
mhm,
But I had that feeling, that thought pattern would have normally set me off on an even deeper, darker depression for weeks, if not months. But it didn't, because what happened was another voice came in right afterwards and said, "What did you expect after 40 years of this? Did you really think one 30-minute listening is going to change your life?" And I agreed with it. I
mhm,
said, "You're right." It took me decades to realize that that was a benefit too, but I didn't realize it at the time. I told this story to a friend of mine and it clicked suddenly. Wow, that was a benefit. I didn't even notice. Once I created that one recording and I saw that change, I created an entire system. Once I created the entire system, people started noticing the difference in me. They asked to know what I was doing. People started trying it, benefiting from it. And that started me on a career where I'm recovering from my deep, dark depression. At the same time, I'm helping others to help themselves too. So I hope we still have time left and I haven't talked the whole thing away.
oh, no, that's wonderful. And wow, where even to start? So now on a day-to-day basis, are those voices gone for you or do they come back?
Nothing. I haven't had voices in over 10 years.
That
Nothing, like zero.
that
And
is
the
wonderful.
feelings of depression, what depression? To be frank with you, and look into my eyes, because I'm looking into the camera so you can see my eyes, and anyone watching this interview can see my eyes. I feel like I'm lying every single time I tell this story because I'm not the person I was then.
Mhm,
I remember it like I'm watching it on television,
mhm,
but it doesn't feel real to me anymore because I can't relate to those feelings of depression anymore. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've had things. I had two cancer scares at the same time. And I was laughing and I was having fun and I was okay. I've gone through a lot of relationships. I pity the poor girls who dated me during those years. And that was a lot of years. Unfortunately, a lot of girls too. But I pity them because what did I put them through? I don't even know what I put them through.
mm.
I was not a good person. I was not a nice person. I was selfish. All I thought about was myself. I wasn't a good guy.
So
But
it sounds like to me through this entrainment, this new type of entrainment, that you actually have a totally new identity. I mean, and I know that to make a huge shift in anyone's life, they actually have to change who they are, who they're being, and you did that.
I had no choice though. A lot of people credit me and they go, "Oh, that's amazing that you pulled yourself out of that. It's like we can't even imagine what that would have been like." I'm reminded of a phrase, and again, I wish I came up with this phrase. I didn't. I'm repeating it, but there's no courage where there's no choice. And I
Mm,
really didn't have a choice. I couldn't go on the way I was. I couldn't end my life because obviously more of me wanted to live than wanted to die. I really painted myself into a corner. I had no choice but to do something or to find something.
and I know there are people listening today, and there's people out in the world who every day they're waking up with those same thoughts as, am I going to kill myself today? Or something, even a simple thing happens and they say, well, I should kill myself, and to people who don't have those thoughts, that sounds like That's really strange. Why would someone think that? But I've actually talked to other people who've gone through the same, thing where they have those suicidal thoughts and they have for years. And, one of their solutions is always, well, I can turn right, I can turn left, or I can kill myself, and it sounds really strange to people who don't have that feeling. So, um, what being the identity and the person you are now, would there have been anything anyone could have said to you that would helped with that?
I can't speak for other people, but I would imagine some at least would think the same way I was thinking. When I was super depressed, I was super focused on myself. Couldn't give a crap what other people thought. They don't understand.
Mhm,
Even people that maybe loved me, wanted to help me, why would I listen to them? They don't know what I'm going through. Wow, wow, boo hoo, low is me, right? Woe is me, low is me. I'm the worst. Everybody in the world has a better life than I do. I was just so fixated on myself and on my feelings that I didn't care about other people.
mhm,
I maybe pretended to, but so if other people tried to help me, I don't think I even listened. Or maybe I would pretend to listen because they're trying to be nice, but deep inside, I knew there's nothing they could do and nothing they could say because they don't understand. They don't know what it's like to look out of your window every day and want to see mushroom clouds. Like,
mhm,
how do you explain? Like, I can tell that to you. And everybody out there who's hearing that hears it and they can even visualize it. But can they imagine it? And the other thing is, you and I both, Kimberly, we could be out there somewhere and somebody could tie us down and break our arms in exactly the same spot, and we wouldn't likely have the same experience,
mhm,
even if it was the same arm, the same spot, the same depth, the same everything. I kind of have a understanding that humans exist in their own universe. Words don't even mean the same thing for people. We could walk down the same street and be interviewed afterwards and tell different stories. You saw a guy wearing a nice suit having a coffee on the street. I saw a dog taking a whiz against a fire hydrant. You didn't see what I saw. I didn't see what you saw. Literally, in my view, we're existing in two different universes. And like I said, words don't even mean the same thing. So if that's the case, that even can possibly isolate me even more, realizing that occasionally the universal bubbles rub up against each other. But for the most part, we're all, you know, on the ocean in a raft by ourselves. That's kind of a depressing thought
mhm,
until I started realizing that being in our own universes is actually kind of neat because it means that none of us looks at the world the same way. Meaning, in the old days, I used to wait for people to stop talking so I could explain to them why they're wrong, right?
mhm,
Now, you're always right and I'm never wrong because I believe in quantum physics. And on the most basic level, quantum physics might say nothing exists until it's observed. But if everybody observes everything differently in their own way, that means that it exists, at least for them that way.
mhm,
And it exists, at least for me that way, meaning that I have a whole new respect for people around me and for the world around me now that I never had because I didn't have what I like to call an understanding that made any sense. My
mhm,
understanding was selfish. Now my understanding is, like I said, you're always right because whatever you observe exists for
mhm,
you. Whatever I observe exists for me. The thing is that if we're both in, similar universes, but not quite the same universe, and I see you're happy, then I can now see that I could also be happy.
mhm,
Whereas before, all I saw was someone teasing me that I wasn't.
mhm. Just seeing that reminds me of NLP. For some people who don't know what that is, neuro linguistic programming. One of the basis of it is respect the other person's view of the world. That's one of the, number one top things we do when we're actually working with people to help them, change is we have to respect whatever they say, we say, okay, all right. Like it may not make sense to us, but if it makes sense to them, then it's their world and we respect it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And the beautiful thing about, I'm grateful actually for the 40 years of hate and spite and pain and agony and all that stuff. Because in reality, I think I just misinterpreted lessons.
Mm,
I now understand that, at least in my universe, there is no good, there is no bad, there really is no right, there is no wrong. And now that I understand that, when something happens, instead of me defining it as bad and doing my reflexive,
uh,
now when something happens, I go like this.
you lean in.
That's right. And I try to get the lesson from it, because I suspect a lot of the pain I was feeling was because I wasn't paying attention. I remember when I was 6 or 7 years old, I played hooky from school. I told my mom I was sick. So she sits me in front of the idiot box television, because we didn't have phones and tablets and computers back then.
Mhm.
And I got bored. So I came into the kitchen. She had the phone up against her shoulder, and she was talking to my aunt. And she had 3 pots going on the stove. Back in those days, the elements of the stoves were elevated. They weren't under glass or gas or anything like that. So I'm going, Mommy, Mommy, play with me. I'm bored. And she said, Honey, I can't. I'm talking to your aunt. I'm making you lunch. I'm making dinner for everyone. Go lie down. You have to rest, drink water, and feel better. So I took 3 steps and then I walked back, like to my mom. At which point I noticed one of the elements, and it was glowing like a lava lamp, right? It was like yellow and blue and green and red, and just fascinating me. So I reached my hand out and my mom saw, and she said, Honey, don't do that. You'll burn yourself. Very soft, nice words. Well, this went on 5, 6 more times. The 5th time, her voice was very loud. It was progressively getting louder and louder. This time it was loud, 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 and slap. Don't do that. You're going to burn yourself.
Mhm.
Right? She thought I learned my lesson. Ha ha. I fooled her. So she wasn't looking. I put my hand right on the burner. I had rings, rings, rings. Every time I bent my fingers for like weeks, I was in agony.
Oh,
But now when I think back on it, after what I just told you before, it's the lesson. To me, it was my mom slash the universe slash my unconscious, or whatever you want to call it, trying to tell me nice things,
mhm.
or things in a nice way. But did I listen? No, because I didn't listen. Things got louder and more painful,
Mhm.
until finally they got the ultimate pain. And you know what? I've never stuck my hand on a stove again since then.
I
Isn't that
bet not.
funny? Right? But that's my point. That story actually happened with my mother. If I had learned the lesson, who knows how much pain, how much depression I might not have had, if I had only listened, if I had only not defined the way I was feeling as bad. Now I look at depression as something valuable. It's something good.
Mhm.
Feeling bad to me, feeling pain, feeling discomfort, is a red light on the dashboard of my life. It tells me something isn't right. Something is wrong. I need to pay attention to it to stop it from getting worse. That's what it tells me now. Back then, I chose not to listen. So it got angry and it got mad. And I believe that's why I went through 40 years of depression. Basically, I was an idiot. I wasn't listening. I was just an idiot, period. But I learned from being an idiot. And that learning brought me to where I am today and where I will be tomorrow, which of course is the today to come. I
Mhm.
don't believe in the past. I don't believe in the future. Frankly, I don't believe in anything. Even everything I've just said now is nothing more than a current understanding. And
Mhm.
I love that, because you know what? When I was depressed for that amount of time, I knew what was coming every minute in advance, every hour in advance, every day in advance, every week, every month, every year in advance. I knew what was coming. I was always right. I was like a psychic. Misery, hate, spite, pain, agony. Now I haven't the slightest clue what's coming next 5 minutes from here now. Okay. And I have to tell you, nothing in the world makes me happier.
I was gonna say, isn't that exciting?
It's
Isn't that
exciting. I feel
exciting?
like a kid walking into a new room. Where's the light? I want to see what's here. I want to experience everything. Come on, show me, show me, show me.
Mhm. So I'm just curious, when you were coming up those 40 years, and I know you did a lot of studying, searching for, a cure for yourself, but what was your background? How did you actually function on all those drugs and obviously still make a living? What did you do before?
Well, didn't make such a living. The best I ever did before this career was about $23,000 in a year. And by the way, I'm a Canadian. So if you're an American out there, you can translate that to be about $14,000 annually. Most of the time I lived with my folks or with girlfriends, and the girlfriends had good jobs and they were paying my way for the most part. By the way, including buying me my marijuana. They were good girls. They were really good girls. But so I really wasn't getting by. I really wasn't doing well. But I had parents who loved me, and I guess I had girls who at least put up with me, and friends who also at least put up with me. I'm not quite sure how I got girls, and I'm not quite sure how I got friends. I'm not sure I'll ever understand how that happened. But I got by somehow. I got by, and I'm grateful for all the pain. I mean, I even broke my kneecap and dislocated bones many times and cracked ribs and slipped discs and concussions and these are fake teeth
Mhm.
because I smashed them out a few times. Everything, believe it or not, all of that, people at home are probably going, ooh, ah, ah, like every time they hear about a pain, right? You
Yeah.
know how it is on the comedy shows, right? Or on the cartoons, right? I'm grateful for all of it, every last bit of it, because because of it made me who I am today, and it helps me to become who I will be the today that comes tomorrow. And I'm happy who I am now, even though, believe it or not, I could live to be a million and I'd still have a long way to go. But I'm still
So
very happy from a business perspective. I'm grateful with the ability to do what I want to do in my life, to find a joy in what I'm doing. You know, so many of us, I think we spend our business careers whining and complaining about what we have to do for a living or living, that old song by Trooper, Living for the Weekend, right? That's all about, I make good money. I hate what I do, but it's okay because at least I drive a nice car and I go on vacations 3 times a year. You know, that's not how life needs to be. Just like happiness is a choice, just like I made a choice that there's no more bad things anymore. Now there's just lessons. You can make a choice that you can find something good about what you're doing. If you feel trapped right now, I believe that's because you're just not looking at what you're doing the right way. There's always a way to look at anything and find a benefit to it, a learning experience, something that you can turn around into something that is beautiful for you.
Mhm. That's great advice. So I'm wondering, I know you studied all these things and you tried all these things, EMDR and
Yeah.
uh, but then, the crackling logs and then the entrainment that didn't work. So what did you do differently? You brought it, back to life. You brought it into this century. What did you do
Yeah.
differently? How does yours, work?
So I have an honors degree in psychology and a minor in sociology because part of my research was I had to learn things. So I was of university age at the time when I started really doing my own research. And I thought, well, you know, I got to go to school anyway. I might as well do something that I think might help me. So I took these courses and I majored in these things. The thing is, they didn't really help, but they did help. In not helping, they helped because the thing school taught me was nothing useful in the way of fact or in the way of theory, but it taught me how to learn. And that was the value.
Mhm.
So when I realized that this should have worked. Entrainment should have made a difference, and yet it didn't. And I tried like 25 different varieties of it. Believe it or not, there were that many people at least that were doing this kind of work,
Mhm.
but none of them worked. All of them felt exactly the same to me, which was basically nothing. So I took a lot of the information that I was learning from the neurological research, the neurochemical, behavioral, psychological research, sociological research, nutritional research. Everything has to do with, everything is tied in. The brain is the central processing unit of everybody's life. If it doesn't pass through the brain, you don't know it was there. You could literally get shot and not know you were shot.
Mhm.
There are cases of people who didn't know they were shot and they had a bullet hole in them. They were bleeding. It's like the strangest thing. That's how powerful the brain is. So I took a lot of the knowledge that I was getting. Let me rephrase that. I took the understanding that I was formulating of all these different features, and I started altering the tech. So I bought a computer. I listened and I basically deconstructed all of the different recordings that I had purchased. And I decided, what can I do to make this better? Well, I had no idea. So I just thought, maybe I'll just trust my intuition based on all the information that I have. Instead of trying to force a way, I figured I'd let it just happen. Instead of being a salmon swimming upstream, I decided to be a salmon that swam downstream instead. And it was a lot easier. And ideas just started coming to me. And because I don't really have a formal education in quantum physics, and I don't have I don't have an education in a lot of these other disciplines, I just kind of self-taught from what I was reading and self-understood. I didn't have anyone telling me it's impossible to do it. So I started doing things that shouldn't work according to the quote unquote laws of nature, which I don't believe at all, because people make laws, not nature.
Mhm.
I kind of had the opinion that if I had an idea, that's because it was possible. Otherwise, why would I have the idea?
Mhm.
And that opened me up to different modalities. As a matter of fact, a lot of people use background sounds like streams and cicadas and birds and crickets and very relaxing stuff.
Mhm.
But that actually gets in the way of the entrainment process because you're trying to get your neurons, your brain cells, to follow the frequency. Alpha, beta, delta, theta, gamma. These are just words that denote how many times a neuron is firing per second. It's a range of how many times the neuron fires an electric impulse per second. And depending again on the region of the brain it's in and the amount of times it fires, that dictates the kind of chemistry it produces. The chemistry it produces in all the different areas merges together, creates a recipe. If your life tastes good, like a recipe, then you're producing positive, beneficial, happy chemistry. If you're depressed all the time, you're producing crap. And that crap tastes like crap. And that makes your life taste like crap. That was my philosophy. That was my understanding. So I started doing things like, okay, I don't want to have all the cicadas and all that garbage because I don't think it helps. It's distracting for a little bit, but it doesn't do much else. So I thought maybe if I just have like a white noise, something ineffectual, but it can block out other noises that might take my neurons away from my pulsed tone, which is my entrainment tone. So I tried white noise, but white noise, it felt empty to me. So what I did was I bought a frequency generator and I generated individual frequencies, over 600 of them. And one at a time, I laid them over each other. And most of them were there to act like white noise, just to block other noises, creaking, wind, uh, brushing, little clanking of dishes, that kind of thing. But other frequencies I included and I overlaid are just like humming sounds, like hee, that kind of thing, that were designed to stimulate different regions of the brain. Because again, what I was using wasn't working. So I figured we need to boost the brain first in order to give it the energy to be able to be effective, at least for me. Then I included a special brainwave frequency in the theta bandwidth that creates a circumstance, and this is from the research I was reading, called long-term potentiation. It's more popularly known as LTP. And the idea is with long-term potentiation, memory pathways, neural pathways form. Without it, in one ear, out the other. So that was my first recording. In the theta, you heard shh. Over that, you'd heard and that was it with the different frequencies that I embedded in the shh sound. And that's what gave me that first result that I didn't think worked, but turns out it was the beginning. I got excited by that. I ended up creating my first product, as it turned out to be a product called Quantum Mind Power. And it had something else that was unique about it. It had something called dual brainwave stimulation, which had never been done publicly available in audio before, where I actually entrain the right side of the brain happens from the left ear. The left side of the brain happens from the right ear, crosses over to two different and distinct frequencies. And that helped to stop my negative thought process. It just quieted my mind. It was unbelievable. And I added things. I added subliminal aspect recordings. I added other things. I added a recording called Good Night, Sleep Well, which, by the way, I still use today every single night when I go to sleep. Brainwave entrainment, when it's properly engineered, doesn't go bad. There's no best before date. As long as you have a brain and a body, it's good. It's like breathing, eating. Doesn't lose its effectiveness the more you use it or with age. So when that happened, I sent a recording to a guy who I was on his list for as a thank you, just as a thank you. You know, it's weird, I know, as a list member to send a gift to a list donor. Normally it's the other way around, but I'm dyslexic, so that doesn't surprise me. I would do things backwards. Well, he tried it. He's a Chinese national living in Singapore. English is like his fifth language. And he said, you know what, Morry, this recording of yours, English is my fifth language. I read it much faster. I understand it easier and I remember longer. How'd you like to go into business together? After Quantum Mind Power, 3 years later or 2 years later, he suggested we did a poll. Confidence and self-esteem is a problem. Can you design something for that? I said, sure. He said, okay, but can you design something with something that's never been done before? Because I like how you did that for the first. That's what made it successful because no one else could get it anywhere else. I said, sure. I had no idea what I was going to do. But that gave birth to something called triliminals, which now I have 171 sets of them that became so popular. I can't stop with ideas. I have 24 products right now that are available, all of which have proprietary techniques or technology I developed. I have 10 more in the peak performance field getting ready to be released, and I'm working on 50 others, all of which have different unique styles. I was talking to a guy today. I came up with another variation on triliminals. I mean, the ideas don't stop. I encourage all of you out there. You're in business, you're in relationships, you're whatever. If you get an idea, don't go, it's impossible. You got the idea for a reason because you're brilliant. That's why you got the idea. And if you can't figure out right now how to do it, remember one thing. The person who invented the airplane, the car, the wheel, Quaker oatmeal, whatever, everything that was invented in this world did not come into being the moment it was conceived. Hey, how many of you are parents? Did your baby plop out right after it was conceived? Of course not. It takes time to create once the thought has been planted. So when you have a thought, just because you can't think right away how to do it, that's okay. Just tell yourself, I have the thought for a reason because it's possible, and I'm going to figure out a way to do it. And when you have that thought, you can then forget it. And you'll be sitting around one day reading the paper, watching television, whatever, talking with your spouse, talking with your pet, whatever, and it'll just come to you. And you will do the impossible because there is no such thing as the impossible.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you. So, if people wanted to use your products, Where can they reach you? Where's do you have a website? I saw you have a link tree. So why don't you explain where they can find it?
Well, I guess the best place where they could go would probably be, I mean, they could just do a search for me, but Linktree might be the best place because there's some free recordings there that they can get and check out. They can learn a little bit more about me there as well. They can go to the Active Minds Global website where they'll learn a little bit about what Dr. Bredesen discovered and now uses my recordings to help treat Alzheimer's disease. Uh, so that would be Linktree. So linktr.ee/MORRYZELCO.
Okay. And then what was the other website you said? Active Mind?
That'll be in the link tree as well,
That'll
but
be
it's
in the link tree. Okay, so it'll all be
mindsglobal.com.
there.
Yeah, it's all
Okay.
there.
So when people go there, are they going to find like different categories? Like they say, okay, I need more confidence, so this is
Well,
what I
they'll see
choose.
products. Now, all my products aren't there because the website they're on is, I don't really do my own sales. Other people sell for me. I'm a scientist. I'm not a sales guy. So I don't really sell, but they'll find 10 or 12 products there and they can read through them. Look, the best way to choose a product if you really want one is to see if it resonates with you. So I know some of the sales letters on my products page are long. But at least read bits and pieces here and there as you scroll down. And if it resonates with you, that's when you consider it because you're really your own guru. Nobody else is a guru for you. I don't have wisdom that I'm imparting on you in my work at all. My work is designed almost like a gym for your brain. And your brain knows what's right for you. Your mind knows what's right for you. Ultimately, you know what's right for you. Even if you're not aware of it, you do know. That's why feeling happy feels good and feeling bad feels bad. It's telling you you're on the right track, you're on the wrong track. It's not punishing you. Feeling bad actually is helping you because it's don't do what I did.
Mhm.
Do this instead
Mhm.
because you already have all the answers for yourself. My work just helps you to access them and then act on them once you find them.
Beautiful. Okay, so the big question I ask everybody, there's a couple of them. Here's the first one. What gives you the most happiness and fulfillment at this point?
Wow. There's a bunch of things tied for first. So I guess being able to do the work I do, being able to help people to help themselves is priceless. My wife, oh, you know, it lets me know that I'm worth something, that I could attract someone who is so good-hearted and so sweet and so intelligent. And, how I deserve this, no idea. No idea at all. Maybe it's just a sign. Maybe it's just a prize for coming out of what I came out of. But wow, I would say those are the things that probably would be the most important for me. The work I do and who I do it for.
Mhm. Thank you. And thank you for being on the podcast today and for
Mhm.
sharing your story and your wisdom and great advice for people.
Can I just make a little comment about the so-called great advice I gave?
Yes.
Yeah. I think I think a lot of us out there who've tried self-help, and again, I shouldn't be talking for others, so I'll just talk for myself. The help that I've gotten from other people hasn't really helped me. And I believe that there is a secret sauce missing. Not that their work isn't brilliant, because I believe it is. And not that I don't think it could be helpful, because I think it can. But my thinking is this: I think every single self help guru should put a little paragraph in front of anything they write, like a book that they're selling. They should have a little audio message at the beginning of any tape they do. And they should have something in any video they do as well. And it should just be short and sweet. Please understand that what you're about to read, what you're about to see, what you're about to hear is my view of something.
Mhm.
I cannot think for you. I am not you. I have not lived your life. I've only lived my life. Thus, I can only speak for myself. If anything I say, if anything you hear, if anything you read resonates with you, then take it, adapt it, reinterpret it, reimagine it, make it your own. And if it still resonates with you, that's when you should take action. Otherwise, I believe that's why I failed with so many of these other processes. I believe that's why so many other people fail. Not because these people aren't brilliant, not because they don't have great ideas, but because they neglect to tell you the secret sauce is you, not them.
Mhm. I love that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. And actually the last question, and you might have already just given it, is what's your best advice on living an incredible, amazing life?
Well, I could add to that one line. Happiness is a choice. Choose to be happy.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Maury.
Thank you for having me.
We'll talk to you again soon.
Looking forward to it.